Hi, I'm Ricky. This is my AP Gov Project. Woo! And my state is North Carolina. Okay, so for North Carolina governor, there wasn't an election this year, but there was a previous election. And Pat McCrory, he won. He's a Republican incumbent. And he ran against Walter Dalton, a Democrat, and it was kind of a close race. They both spent a lot of money on it. They both spent over $7 million, and I'm thinking $7 million like a piece at least. This is ridiculous. They could, put that money towards like cancer research and all that, but nope, went to their campaign because they're gonna change the world. Not really. But so let me give you a little background about these people. Governor McCrory is married to his wife of 25 years, and they don't have any kids. They have a Labrador Retriever, which is cool too. Costs less. They named him Mo, like Mo's Grow. Okay. McCrory has been active in education reform. He created a teacher advisory committee, and he reconvened the education cabinet. He took office on January 5th, 2013, and he was born in Columbus, Ohio, believe it or not. Cool. What's he doing in North Carolina? Okay. Well, why would he stay in Ohio? And his election results was 54.6% to his opponent, Walter Dalton. And Walter Dalton is kind of a cool name. It's like, Walter Dalton. A Democrat, he had 43.2%. Walter Dalton is married. He has 2 kids. He lives the life, kind of. I don't know if I'd want 2 kids. And North Carolina is a Republican state. There's some blue areas on the map, but that's mostly cities, like urban areas, that kind of. The 2014 election had a voter turnout rate of 44%. Ooh, this was actually pretty good for the national average. And this is good too because compared to the last election, it raised by 1.3 points. I know this doesn't seem like too much, but it is kind of, it's something. More people showed up. That's good. I kind of have some weird demographics that I found. So let's start with single women. Okay, out of the women that voted, 21% of them in the electorate were single. And I'm like, that's interesting. Okay, so, and then there's young voters, ages 18 to 29. They were only 12% of the electorate. Okay, so for black people, it was 12% of the electorate. I'm guessing there must have been a sale at KFC or on Kool-Aid or something, and that's why a lot of them didn't show up, but oh well, there's always next year's. And then Latinos were 13% of the electorate. There's not really like a too high Latino population without North Carolina. I went there on vacation once, and I saw a white person, and then I saw like this Mexican restaurant, and I went in there, and there were Mexicans working there, and I'm like, whoa, Mexicans are here. That's good. We need more, variety. We can't just have all white. We need some Oreos. Okay, so let's talk about Obama's favorability numbers. Okay, Obama used to have a percentage of 51% of approval rating, and that's really good for a president. But now it's been declining. It's declined since that 51%, and things haven't been looking too good. Recently, his numbers have gone down to 46%. This isn't as bad as in mid-October's poll of 40%, but last week's poll was 43%. It seems to be climbing, but here's the thing. Polls aren't always that accurate. So it could seem like it's climbing, and it's really not. But widely across America, his numbers have been falling, and same in North Carolina. This is kind of interesting. It says that he has dropped 5 points off of his like once stable approval rating. So that's not good. That he must have done something to piss people off. Or maybe he's not doing enough as president. Maybe they expected more out of him. They're like, oh gosh, I should have voted for Mitt. You never know. Okay, now we're going to talk about the North Carolina Senators election. Yes, there was a senator election this year. There were 3 people running. There was Thom Tillis. He had 48.9%. He's a Republican, so yeah, he won. There was Kay Hagan, a Democrat. She was an incumbent. She had 47.2%. This is extremely, extremely close, like really close. 48.9% versus 47.2%. Okay, now we're gonna move on to the political games. Woo! I am Dogness Neverdeen. Oh yeah. And I'm hosting the political games of 2004 in North Carolina. So we're gonna move on to District 1. District 1 was G.K. Butterfield. He was a Democrat, and he won. Woo! Which isn't, not too many Democrats won for House. It's actually kind of interesting because there are 13 districts, and only 3 of the winners out of the 13 are Democrats, and the 10 are Republicans. So Republicans really outnumbers them. So anyways, J.K. Butterfield ran against Arthur Rich, a Republican, and Arthur Rich didn't do so hot. He had 26.65%. And for a Republican, he probably should have had more because a lot of these were very close. Or the Republican always had a lot more than that. I guess, and North Carolina is a Republican state mostly. So this either was in a district where there was a lot more Democratic voters or people just did not like this guy. I don't know. And then we're moving on to District 2. Renee Elmers, she's a Republican. She won. She had 58.85%, and she ran against Clay Aiken. Yes, the same Clay Aiken that is a singer or was a singer in like 2000 something. He's not around anymore. He's alive, but his music's just kind of dead. And he came out gay, I think. I know that's not really relevant. Just putting it out there. He's a Democrat. Yeah, he didn't win. He had 41.15%, and Renee Elmers had 58.85%. So, yeah. He was actually the youngest person to run for House in North Carolina this election. He's 35 years old. His competitor was 50 years old. So, I don't know if that had something to do with it too. I do. And now we're moving on to District 3 with Walter Jones. He's a Republican. He won. He had 67.85. His competitor was Marshall Adam. He's a Democrat. He had 32.15%. And we're moving on to District 4 with David Price, a Democrat. He is the second one of the 3 to win. He had 74.74%. And Paul Wright was the Republican that ran against him, and he had 25.26%. So again, this was either a Democratic district or people just did not like the Republican. And then we're moving on to District 5 with Virginia Fox, the Republican. And she ran against Joshua Brannon, a Democrat. Again, we're dealing with a young guy versus an old person. Yeah, Virginia Fox was a very old fox. She is 71 years old, and Joshua Brannon is only 36. So, anyways, she won. I guess when they say, what does the fox say? She has something really good to say, because she won. Anyways, she won at the percentage of 61.04%. and he lost at the percentage of 38.96%. And moving on to District 6, we have Mark Walker. He's a Republican. He had 58.67%. He is middle-aged. He's 46. And then we have Laura Fitzgerald. I'm not sure if that's how you pronounce it. It's weird. Fitzgerald. Let's do it. She's a Democrat. She has 41.33%. And again, you're going to see a big pattern that a lot of the Republicans are winning. They outnumber the Democrats. So you can watch out for that. And then we're moving on to District 7 with David Rouser. He's a Republican. He had 59.43%. He ran against two other people. He ran against a Democrat, Jonathan Barfield. He had a percentage of 37.10%, and then you have Wesley Castine. He's a Libertarian. He only had a percentage of 3.46%. So it's very interesting. Then you have District 8 with Richard Hudson, not Jennifer Hudson, Richard Hudson. I don't think there's any relation. He's a Republican. He won at 64.89%. And then you have Antonio Blue. Okay, that is a cool name, Antonio Blue. He lost, and his percentage was 35.11%. Gosh, with a name like that, you'd think he'd win. And then we have District 9. Don't worry, we're almost there. District 9 with Robert Pittenger. He won. He's a Republican. Go figure. He had a percentage of 67.59%, and he went against Michael Steinberg. I'm guessing he might be Jewish with the last name. Could be wrong. He lost, and his percentage was 32.41%. He was a Republican. So this was very weird because they're both Republicans. Usually it's Republican versus Democrat or Libertarian. We're all three. In this case, it's Republican versus Republican. So, okay. And then we have District 10 with Patrick McHenry. That sounds like so Irish. Anyways, he's a Republican. He won. He had 61.02%. And then there was Tate McQueen. No, not Lightning McQueen. He's a Democrat. He had 38.98%. And then moving on to District 11, woo! Almost there. There's Mark Meadows, a Republican, versus Tom Hill. I find this really interesting. They have the last names of Meadow and Hill. Meadows and Hill. It's a very nature-y election, I guess. Mark Meadows, 62.93%, and then Tom Hill had 37.07%. So it didn't look too good for that Democrat. And then we're moving on to District 12. In this district, two black people ran against each other. So this is very interesting. Alma Adams, she was the Democrat. She won. So this is the third case of a Democrat winning in the House of Representatives in 2014 for North Carolina. She's this like elderly. She's not too old, but she's 68. And she's kind of an older woman. And then versus Vince Coakley, another black person. But he's like a middle-aged black guy, so I mean, she kind of whipped his bottom. Let's say that. She had 75.41%, and he had 24.59%. I want to point out, this is really interesting. I'm not being racist. I like all ethnicities. He's a Republican, and he's black, and you don't see that a lot. There are black Republicans out there. Trust me, there are. But most black people are Democratic. Most of them are. And I just thought it was pretty interesting that a black guy ran as a Republican. So let's move on to the last district, District 13. With George Holding, he's a Republican. He had 57.32%. And this is versus Brenda Cleary, a Democrat, 42.68%. So there you go.